No one carves statues of frightened warriors. If you see one, keep your eyes closed and your ears open. Hey guys, welcome to BTD. My name's Mark. Today we're talking about basilisks. I like how my hands moved when I said the word basilisks. Just a very smooth, where there's a lot of S's. Basilisks. So there are a number of monsters that your players can encounter that are going to put a little bit of fear into them. And it's not the monsters with high AC. It's not the monsters that hit really hard. It's not the ones that have a lot of hit points. It's the ones who have abilities that can do special, terrible things to the players in one shot. So especially if your players already know what a basilisk can do to them, know that it can turn them to stone simply with its gaze, they're going to tread pretty lightly, even if it should be a monster that otherwise wouldn't present much trouble to them. This alone is reason enough to use the basilisk at some point, and it's reason enough for me to try to find ways to incorporate it into my game. But I think that a random encounter against one or more basilisks is far from the only way that you can use this creature in interesting ways. One of the cooler notes in the monster manual on this creature is that they can be tamed and domesticated. So as soon as you hear that, I hope you're thinking along the lines of what I'm thinking. You know, what better way for a rich nobleman to put fear into his enemies than with his pet basilisk? If he's negotiating with the players, with other NPCs, whatever the situation may be, they're having this discussion, this negotiation, this debate, and right alongside him is his pet basilisk. Well, that's going to go a little bit differently than if that creature wasn't there. So inserting basilisks into situations where they might not initially be present, I think, is one of the cooler ways to use them. So you could find them in urban settings, perhaps, and certainly, you know, they could be bodyguards, they could go along with a caravan, so you could find them almost anywhere once they become domesticated. So I think it makes a rather obvious, interesting plot hook, and I'm sure I'm not the first DM to think of this, but I've actually not seen anyone mention this, but I think it'd be a cool plot hook for someone to come to the party and say, hey, I want to domesticate a basilisk. So why don't you go out there and find me a basilisk egg? I know where there's a basilisk lair over in yonder hills. So go there, I will reward you handsomely, bring me back this egg. So that could be a unique challenge for your players that's going to be a little bit different than simply killing something. Maybe it's just a snatch and grab. So maybe they try to get in stealthily. Maybe they do have to fight with a basilisk clan or lair. But either way, I think it is more interesting than just having it as, say, a random encounter. So I haven't actually tried that, and I'm sure somewhere out there somebody has, but that to me seems like a really fun, like that right there could be a really interesting one shot, or it could be something that you incorporate into your campaign. And the other thing about basilisks that many DMs and some players might be aware of is that their blood can form an oil, so alchemists can turn this into an oil that can be applied to people who have been turned to stone, and it can revivify them, it can turn them back into their normal forms. So if you have an alchemist in the group, this could be very interesting. You could find a way to work that into conversation with an NPC, with an ally, within the lore of the world, or maybe you could just say that your player character knows that information as an alchemist, and so if they come across a basilisk, that might be something that they're very interested in. So then, do they hang on to it for a rainy day in case someone in the party turns to stone? Do they sell it? So this is an interesting way to use more than just the monster in an encounter in a way that will make your players feel more engaged with the world. And of course, something like that could be an entrance, could be a foot in the door to a similar plot hook to the one we just talked about, where someone wants to domesticate a basilisk. So maybe they have a loved one who has been turned to stone and they need to turn them back, and nobody has high enough level magic to do it with just a spell. So they need the fluids from a basilisk that can do this. So they hire the players to go ahead and get this. Whether or not they have an alchemist in the group, that might help, but I don't think it would be a necessity. So maybe there's an alchemist in town who isn't much of a warrior, so the alchemist can't join them on their quest, but it's their job to slay the basilisk, take all its fluids, and bring it back to town so the alchemist can distill it into something that can bring back this petrified loved one. So I think this is a really cool monster because of that reason, because its central ability provides a lot of entryways into the world for you to provide quest hooks for your characters that present them with a unique challenge. So what other ways are there to use basilisks? Are you familiar with any? Have you used it in a different way than I mentioned in this video? If so, I'd love to hear about it. Let me know in the comments. And until next time, take care.